So, Esther woke up about 4:30. Twins were on both sides of her on the air mattress. She slowly moved and managed to stand up, get away from them without waking him, and went out to the kitchen, checked on the bread. She's going to make fresh bread this morning for breakfast. And the dough from the night before had risen about sixfold, quite a bit. She turned on the oven, went to the restroom, came back, and started to make some coffee because it's always nice to have that aroma in the house. As she was beginning to work with the bread, and Brandy came out, and Esther ran up to her and said, "And Brandy, it's so early. Shouldn't you be sleeping?" And Aunt Brandy spoke softly to Esther and said, "I knew you'd be awake and in the kitchen, and I just wanted to have some special time with you." She said, "I've missed all of your childhood years being with you." And Esther smiled and said, "Well, we have today and the future." And Esther said, "And I believe we'll have many years to share. We may not always be in the same house, but my home is Chicago now, and we'll always be close to each other." And Esther smiled and said, "I was just about to work with some bread dough. We're going to have fresh bread this morning. How would you like to help?" And Brandy found that very exciting and interesting and said, "Oh, can we have some coffee too while we're doing this?" And she actually said Jamaican coffee, because Aunt Brandy had become rather spoiled at the coffee that Esther was able to make. So Esther said, "Absolutely, it will be ready in just a couple minutes." So the girls, they went up to the counter, and Esther pulled out the large bowl that had the dough that had risen in it. She removed the cloth over it, put it on the counter, and divided it in half, and told Aunt Brandy to please follow everything she did. And Esther started to knead it, folding it over. Within a matter of 6 minutes, they had both dropped a loaf of bread into a pie pan, or not a pie pan, a bread pan. And at that point, the oven made a soft sound. It had reached temperature. So Esther put the 2 bread pans into the oven, and Brandy was excited and asked how long will it take, and Esther said, "Well, there are a lot of variables, but when the crust turns a light brown, it'll be ready. It should be maybe 18 minutes. And Aunt Brandy said, "It must be working with that bread and the way it smells so good that I'm really beginning to feel hungry." And at that moment, the twins walked up. They had woken up. And Esther said to them, "Why are you awake?" And the twins, they said, "Well, we could smell the coffee, and actually we were smelling the bread too that you were working with, and it all smelled so good. We couldn't sleep any longer." And so Aunt Brandy and the twins sat down at the table. The twins had grabbed some coffee. Excuse me. And Esther said, "Well, why don't I whip up breakfast real quick?" So Esther started to move about in the kitchen, and before you knew it, within 12 minutes, she had pretty much prepared scrambled eggs, hash browns, homemade ones, and some sausage patties, and the bread was just about ready to come out. And Brandy said to Esther, "You look so happy in the kitchen while you're working." And Esther said, "Well, I do really enjoy making food that people enjoy." And she said, "Well, all this is very simple. It is rewarding to see people enjoy it." So she checked on the bread, pulled it out. She said, "Let's set the table real quick here and start breakfast." And Brandy helped Esther, and they put some plates on the table with some silverware. Esther brought the dishes of breakfast over, and the bread had just cooled enough to where Esther was able to pull a loaf out, sliced it up, put it on a plate, and placed that on the table. Everybody enjoyed breakfast very much. This was Tuesday morning. Brandy had to leave first, and then before leaving, Esther said to the twins, "You should go ahead and continue shopping today, since you said you didn't see the whole store yesterday, and you had some more shopping to do, and be ready at 3 o'clock when we get home, because we'll repeat what we did yesterday, and we'll go down to the warehouse and have our second day of training. Today it's going to be about people grabbing you from the front." So the twins agreed. Esther took off for school. She had the Ninja. Day had the Mustang, and so Esther had some updates made to her helmet, done by her friend, her dad's friend too, John, and those updates were state-of-the-art artificial intelligence on Esther's visor. She could see updates on criminal history of people that she would pass on the street if they had a criminal history. And her helmet scanned everything in front of her and would focus in on people. And the helmet also had a voice recognition, so the artificial intelligence name was Mo, M-O-E. Esther said, "Mo, please call Day for me." And so Day answered and said, "Good morning." Day asked where Esther was. Esther said, "Well, I'm about 6 minutes away from the school." And Day said, "Well, we just might be arriving about the same time then." Day asked what Esther had prepared for breakfast, and when she told her, she said, "Oh, that sounds so good, but Dad and I had cereal and fruit, and it was nice to have breakfast with Dad, but it wasn't a meal like Esther provides." So at that point, they both pulled into the parking lot for school. Esther was able to pull up closer, obviously, because she had the motorcycle. And John and his brother Wes and Mike were there, standing by their ninjas, waiting for Esther. And all three were telling Esther, "Thank you for inviting them yesterday," that they were really thrilled to have been part of the training. And so Esther told them, "Well, the twins are going to be around 2 more days, and that they'll be training 2 more days. And so if you want to come each night, we'll be training at 3 o'clock after school." And John absolutely said, "I'll be there." And the other two totally agreed. So they came up, and they all said good morning, and they walked into the school. The first class, calculus, Mr. Grade said it pretty much appeared that the girls were going to win the competition unless the boys really excelled on the next test, and the girls didn't. And that was somewhat obvious mid-semester, but it was more obvious now. So they had a speaker, a guest speaker for the class that day, somebody talking about the opportunities if you become a math major, where that can lead. So by 6th hour, the girls went to a PE class. They were all getting dressed, and Ms. Strong asked them to come out and sit on the bleacher first. She said, "Well, this has been the most amazing semester ever for her. Doubt that it would ever be repeated. That the class had all earned an A," and she understood that everybody had given it 100%. And she thought that was the most wonderful thing, considering they all knew they had a special circumstance where everybody was guaranteed a scholarship somewhere. And she told everybody that if they chose, most likely there would be schools approaching them with scholarship opportunities if they wanted, if they would be interested in running. That everybody had proven themselves worthy of running very fast. So Ms. Strong said, we're going to train Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Friday would be a day off, and they were all going to have a spaghetti dinner together, and that would be at Italy's Pizza Parlor. They had agreed to provide meals for the whole class, and it would be spaghetti, an excellent meal for running. So Ms. Strong suggested, let's go out today and run hard and see what we can do. When you get back, cool down, stretch your legs, take a shower, and again we'll talk on the bleachers. So Ms. Strong said, let's start running now. She started her stopwatch, and the girls all took off. So within 15, 16 minutes, the girls got back from a very long run. They had trimmed off several seconds. Ms. Strong was excited about that. She congratulated everybody at the top of her voice while they were all trying to cool down, stretching their muscles. And she asked everybody to quickly shower and to come on out and sit on the bleachers. So at that point, once they were on the bleachers, Ms. Strong said one of her dearest classmates was now working for Nike, and she had shared the class's experience. Nike was going to provide shoes for everybody to run cross country, and the shoes would be made available tomorrow. And so she said, there's a paper here. Simply write down the size you believe you would like, and those sizes will be made available tomorrow. And in addition, she said, tomorrow we're going to have our new Gothic running clothing available, and we'll be able to pick that too. So she said, I'm very excited again, and I look forward to everybody running tomorrow with our new shoes.